terrible at names. But we are going to bring you his sixth place red SYN Shenron deck profile from the most recent Oceania Regionals, which happened on Saturday, which was the 8th of April. And Kevin went undefeated until the last round, and then lost against Benny in the mirror match, and then dropped all the way to 6, which was super unfortunate. But first of all, congratulations, Kevin, and I will let you go crazy with your profile.
Thank you, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting the signed card at least. That'll be a good start to the collection.
Definitely.
Cool. So I'll go through the deck, go through some of the matchups, and then yeah, just some of my thoughts on the deck. So I'll just quickly go through the leader in case someone's forgotten. You get to awaken pretty much like the old wish leaders do. So you rest the card, you get to search 2 balls from life or deck, add them to your hand, and then when you activate a ball, it gets added to your Z energy instead of going to the drop. So this leader's awaken condition is having 6 Z energy. It's not actually having 6 balls, which is pretty relevant in aggro matchups and in matchups where you kind of just whiff and do want to do different lines. Because of the new red cards that have been introduced, you don't necessarily want to just get 6 balls, play Unison, Awaken, and do the normal stuff. There are actually a few different ways you can play a deck now, which I think is what interests me most in the deck moving forward. You can definitely change it up with all the different packages now. So once you're awakened, you're on attack, you draw one, and then the other activate main is once per turn, you choose one of your Shadow Dragons minus a 15k, and you choose one of your opponent's battle cards or unisons and minus a 15k as well. So cool. I'll start going into the deck. So first, the 6 Dragon Balls, pretty standard. You're never going to change those. The 4 Double Strike SYN Shenron. So active a main, pay 1, play him if you have 6 more Z energy. So all these cards here say whether or not you have Z energy. They don't actually care about the balls themselves, which is, I think, something that some people forget. You don't necessarily. The only effect that actually cares about the balls is the Z awakened second effect on the. So you pretty much just want to be slamming these every turn. It's always a classic. They play 4 of the big A drop as well. So deflect triple strike. When he would be negged for the first time in a turn, he gets plus 5k instead. You can play him if you have 3 or more energy, you pay 2 red for him, and then the activate battle is you minus him 3k active minus a battle card 3k power for every Z energy, and then if you have a Z battle card, you get to minus something 30k. So there are some actual scenarios where you don't necessarily want to put your Z awakened, you don't want to put all that negative on one card. You actually can split it, so you minus something 30k, then use the other part. So you would minus him, say 9k because you have 3 easy energy. You actually buff him 5k in the middle of the battle, so you can actually split it, and it's really useful that way as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I play one of the new SYN Shenron, so I did have him at 2, but he's kind of a niche card. The best thing about this card is that he untaps himself at the end of the turn as a blocker, and when you play him, he has the same cost as the SYN Shenron, the 4 drop here, except you can take a life when you play him. So a couple times I'd be sitting on 4 life because the opponent doesn't want to let me Z awaken, and so I can force the Z awaken upon myself, go down to 3, use my leader effect, Z awaken, use it again, and I can pretty much clear a full board on that turn, and it just swings the game massively in my favor. You don't really need more than 1 because you just have so many other better red cards to play now. This is like if you don't have, I guess, the other cards that are coming, like the other promos, which are harder to get, I would just put more of this in because it's just another 1-drop swinger, which is pretty much the whole aim of this deck, is to play cards for as cheap as possible, which shouldn't be allowed, and then just swing with them. So yeah. For the Nueva, if you have 6 or more Z energy or a Z leader, you get to pay 1 red for him. If he's limit 1, if he's removed on your turn, your opponent has 2 or more energy. You get to play him from the drop and draw a card. So I don't play any of the ice, which is the crit version of this card, because you don't really, because you have so many other new red cards, you don't really need the crit anymore. This card is really just a draw. Like, it very rarely swings, and the biggest thing that this thing does is enable me to beat yellow. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but sequencing playing this card along with the SYN Shenron or the leader ability, or even this blocker, because it has a similar effect on swing, you can carry on your own cards. Just the fact that it restands itself is huge when you're trying to push through like a Mecha Freezer or the new Vegeta counterplay. Now for the small ones, I have 4 of the Oceanus. On play, draw a card, find a ball, and 2 of the Supernaturon. So these both cost 1 in your hand if your leader is this leader, the Super Shenron. And this one says you look at the top 5 for a 2-drop Unison or a 4 cost or less Sin Shenron. So only running, I guess, 6 copies of the 1-drops. Basically, just because I only really ever want to play them off my Unison or turn 1 if I need to find a ball. If I don't think I've ever played one of these like by itself, unless I'm going into like a very specific line where I need cards on field to do something. Cool. So now for some other battle cards, I only had 2 of the Gohan. I would run this at 4 if I could, because this card's busted. It has a lot of card text. I'll read it to you. Unique double strike blocker. If your leader is a red Z card counterplay, you play this card. For each Z energy in the cost of the Z cards in your leader area and battle area, reduce its cost by 1. That rarely ever happens. The other one is for each card in your Z energy, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. When this card is played, you choose up to your opponent's battle cards and minus to 20k power. So the thing that's most busted about this card in the deck is I would say 85% of my games, I can have 3 Dragon Balls in my hand, turn 1, without having to spend the energy for the Oceanus to find the 3rd one. Because all you need to do is find 1 of these in your opening hand. And if you have the Gohan, you search for 2, put all 3 there, and then you can just counterplay the first thing your opponent does and have a 20k double strike for next turn. So there are a few games where, specifically against things like the start of Vegito, I went second, found my 3 balls, put them there, kept my energy open, had this in hand. He went to his turn, swung with leader, attempted to play the Goku and activate battle. I responded with this, remove the Goku mid-battle, and then he can no longer awaken, and his whole turn is just done because he has 1 energy left. He then proceeded to tap out, and I just took him down to 2 life the next turn because he has literally nothing he can do. If he didn't tap out, he could have survived longer, but then I just have my game plan. I just stalled his whole turn with 1 card. So I would definitely bump this up to 4. I just couldn't get 4 copies of it. That was literally the only problem. 2 Trunks Deluge. This card is good, but not as good as it used to be. The reason that this card used to be so good in this deck is because you really want to push through that double strike crit with this Sin General Dragon in the old version before the crit haze was banned. So the play would be you play this turn 1, give it crit, swing, make it a 30k double strike crit. Your opponent's pretty much never going to like get out of that, or they're going to lose their whole hand doing it, and you win the game either way. So the value of this card's gone down a little because you don't really. Your opponent's going to take a double strike anyway, unless like they're going to be on 7 life, 8 life. They're going to take that first double strike. They don't really care. So you don't really want to combo early, and then late game you kind of just it's kind of just another card in a way. Like it helps you push through damage in the mid game, but it doesn't necessarily need to be in the deck anymore. I don't think. I think I used it more to defend my cards against battle card heavy decks where they were just trying to swing to clear my board instead of being able to remove it, and I would just use it as a defensive tool. So it's still really good, but I just wouldn't run any more than 20 more. I just don't think there's that much utility for it. So that's the main battle card package I run. Next up, 4 Unison. Card is still busted. I don't know why. Like it's just insane to me. When I picked up the deck again, I forgot how good this is. So two red energy to play. When you play it, you get to look at the top 3 cards, add a red card to your hand, bottom deck the other 2, so it automatically replaces itself. +2, play a 1-drop in rest mode. So you play any of these cards in rest mode, they get their effect, and then you can use the leader effect for pretty much free to then clear something on their board, or even the Sin Shenron effect, or even this effect. It's really insane. And then the -4, which actually comes up a lot now because there's not as much Unison hate in the game anymore currently. It's pretty much only Black Smoke is the card that you'll see. So if the deck doesn't inherently clear Unisons and they don't run Black Smoke, this is just sitting there pretty much the whole game. And then so you pretty much get the -4 of activate battle, give this card 15k power and double strike. So I definitely did that a few games where I would just have this on 6 markers. They know they can't kill it, so they're just going to let it sit there. They're trying to kill me before I kill them, or they're trying to clear the 4 of the cards I've got on board. And so it's just another pressure tool. Like I don't necessarily am attempting to go for game with it, But if they're on 3 life and I swing with this, if they don't respect me just using the -4 and going to the 60k double strike, and they go down 1 life against this deck with the SCR, you just auto lose. So I think this people not respecting the Unison as much as they should anymore, and that's why I kind of play a more heavy Unison package than I have seen as some other builds. So I have 2 peel off missiles in the main board. This is one of the old counterplays when Unisons first got introduced. So it says, if you have a red Unison card in play, if the battle card being played has 15k power or less, it goes to its owner's drop instead of played, and you get 5k power for the turn. So the 5k power is relevant because you normally want to use this on your turn to stop them from floodgating you. But the other effect is, if all your energy is mono red, you can activate this card's counter effect for free by discarding 2 cards. So one of the biggest things in this deck is the amount of draw power. Like, you've seen the games where people like Red SYN will have 13, 14 cards in hand, turn 3, turn 4. You don't really mind just discarding two random cards. Like, you've got extra Gogetas, you've got extra negates you're not going to need because you've already gone down too much life to use the sparking. You just discard them and you just stop a floodgate. So I think this is huge into yellow. You stop the Vegito counterplay, you stop Mecha Freezer from hitting the board. And if they tapped out to do that one thing because they think that it's going to stop my turn, and I do this, I just win the game. Like, there's just nothing they can do at that point. Like, they have to start using token negates, and this card is goated, I would say. Shout out to John for telling me to put in my deck, because it won me the yellow matchup easily. I think without this card, yellow is very hard. Cool. 2 Wolfang Fist. Card I'm iffy on. It's kind of a card that I just side out a lot in a lot of the matchups because there's not really anything relevant. Like, I'm not really. This doesn't kill anything with barrier that's kind of relevant at the moment. It's more just another free negate with Unison on board. So it just says, if you have a Unison on board, you can just activate this from your hand for free. And then the attacking card gets minus 15k power for the battle, ignoring barrier. So that's battle card or leader card. So it kind of is just like, if I had it in my hand and they're swinging with something big and I'm like, I don't want to take the hit, I'll just use it just because okay, you now have to combo 3 cards just to get back to where you were, and they're just never going to do it. So you never really want to try and stop them from ending the game with this card. You use it more mid game to just preserve your life for when you want to use the token and spark and negates. 1 Yamcha card is still busted into. I understand why they banned it now. I thought it was kind of weird at first, but this into yellow. I will say the majority of my matchups were yellow, and I figured that a lot of the meta is currently yellow, just trying to feed on all the blue, and so a lot of the deck is designed to beat yellow, which it did on the weekend, so it was good. When you play this card, choose up to 2 opponent's battle cards, and they get minus 15k power for the turn. So because of the wording on this card, it's in the counterplay windows. So even though it gets played, you can't choose the card coming in, and you can't choose cards with deflect on the field. So it's sort of limited in what it can choose. But the fact that it would just neg 2 things 15k, and also with this Gohan, you can actually activate, if they're playing the card by a seal, you can actually activate both counter windows. So counter window 1, you play the SYN Gohan. Counter window 2, you play the Yamcha. Their card hits. Because you played the Yamcha in counter window 2, their battle card's actually on the field, so you can choose it with this skill when it's played by skill. So you can actually minus something, one thing minus 35k and something else minus 15k, all for 1 energy. And that'll just pretty much kill anything without barrier and deflect, which is pretty huge into like a lot of decks. Like, this just deletes most of Android 21's cards when they're trying to play it. Like, they get the effect, but you don't really care. Like, the Android 21 player has no cards on the field. They can't really do much. I would say this is like the first part of my spice build, this dispo. So the card says cost 1 red, limit 1 counter attack. If your leader card is red, you can negate the attack and play this card in rest mode. And if you negate a leader attack with this skill, your opponent can't attack with leader cards for the turn. Has some merit of that effect, but you don't really ever care about that. It's more the fact that when you activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost by paying with Spirit Boost 2. So because people ignore unisons and just let them live forever, this card actually won me 2 games on the weekend. One against a starter Vegeta, and then the other one actually against the starter Vegeta as well. It's just they don't really expect the amount of negates I can do of 0 energy. Combined it with the other free negate, so you can free negate twice in one turn with both of these cards. It's actually kind of stupid as long as you're Z Awakened, which you don't use these unless they're going for game. Like you don't really want to show your opponent you have this unless the attack is causing you to lose the game. So I just held this until the very end of the game where they thought they had game. I showed them they didn't. So the rage as well. Unique critical blocker, negate the attack by the card, and if your leader is the Z Awakened SYN Shenron, you get to just play it for free. And I also play 2 After Image. This card I'm iffy on. Sparking is sort of hard to get in this deck unless they're actively clearing your board, and then if it's blue, they're putting it to the bottom of the deck anyway. So a lot of the time I just kind of charge this card, but it's just a really good option to clear stuff, like with the Yamcha, or with, like you say, you've like counterplayed something that's 30k and you've minus the 20 with the Gohan. You can then after image remove it. It is still very useful. Like I wouldn't remove it, but it's not something I like ever like need, I guess. But the options are always good. So the last 3 negates are just testing the opposition. This card is, I mean, just always going to be busted. Being able to stop 2 attacks if your opponent can't play around it is pretty insane. Takes a life. You have to be at 5 lives or left, which isn't the hardest issue in this deck, depending on how many balls you got in your life. And you can self-awaken with this SYN now. So yeah, just I wouldn't go to 4, I wouldn't go to 2. Just 3 seems like the best number. And so yeah, that's the negate package. And so then the last few cards are. I swapped over to this Android 20 Inherit Evil super combo, mainly for the fact it's just always on, like the old red yellow Beerus super combo. But because I'm mono red, you're never going to get the second effect. So it's essentially the exact same as that and always live. And the reason I want to change to that is because I play this Nappa. So SS3 Nappa, it's one of the old set 7 cards. I've seen this got first. I first saw this in the EU Red SYN final decks. Actually, a lot of them were running this card, and I like running spicy one-ups, so I decided to add it in and change my. Didn't have to change the deck really at all because I was already running mono red. And it just says when you play this card from your hand, choose up to 1 card in your opponent's life and place it in the drop area. So if they're on 1 life and they don't have a way to counterplay it, they lose the game. It's pretty much just Vegeta SCR, but without being an SCR. And then the final card is not Vegeta SCR, it is Radiant Saiyans. So I'll read the card because there's a lot of text. So if this card it has the semi this card removed from your battle area, just gets removed from the game instead. If your if your opponent has 2 or more energy and your leader card is red, blue, or shares a character name with one of these, you gain double strike and crit. And then at the end of the battle where you combo this, it's a free 10k combo. You can pay 2, either play it. If you choose not to play it, you can remove it from the game instead and choose up to your 4 opponent's battle cards and place them at the bottom of their deck. So there is one catch to this, is since this checks for non-red cards in all areas other than deck, hand, and life, if this card is in my Z energy or drop, I can no longer use this effect. So it's actually a lot less relevant than I thought it was going to be, just because of the fact that I was either, if I was comboing this off, if it was going to my drop, I was either using it to win the game or not lose the game, or I would pay for it to do one of the effects, just because the effect, it gives Red SYN a board clear when you don't necessarily need it, but there's just sometimes cards which they just like overwhelm you. You just need to remove more of them if they've effectively cleared your board. Like against Android 21, I paid 2 and just bottom decked his like 4 of his cards on his board pretty much, and it was just he couldn't recover after that. He spent all of his cards and energy clearing my board and keeping it empty. I did this. I just moved his board and then just won the game from there because he just couldn't recover because they just stopped drawing that many cards after a while. I would say if I did own the Vegeta SCR, I would probably just run it because it's just then 2 free burn damage is insane. But this this is good enough to still be like still have a reason to play like this Nappa. Like I wouldn't not play the Nappa just because I have this in the deck. And yeah, that's the general deck.
Yeah, that looks hella spicy. You gotta always ask, did you win a game off Nappa?
I did actually win one. So against a Vegeta starter, he tried to go all in. He actually played the 8 drop off the new extra SCR, the one that has
Yep.
Vegeta in it. Played the Goku out, and so it became a triple strike dual attacker with barrier. And I was like, I'm a bit screwed here. I was on 5 life. My hand was two testing the oppositions, 1 rage, and 1 dispo negate, and I had unison on board. And so I went testing for the first 2 swings. He restood with its effect. I dispoed that third attack. He played Secret Identity to remove this. He swung with Secret Identity. I raged. He swung with Leader. I blocked it, and I lived on 3 life. Go to his turn. He has 2 cards in hand. I swing with Leader, and because it's an inherent double strike, because I was Z awakened, he took the boost from his Leader, tapped out, and then instead of doing anything else, like I had like 3 cards in hand. I just played this, and he just said, "Okay, GG." Like this
Oh.
actually it's pretty much just Vegeta SCR, but it's kind of like 2 copies of Vegeta SCR if you're actually playing that card. Because then the new start of Vegeta, if you can force them to use that ability and then just survive, you just
Yeah.
need. Yellow has very few answers for this, which aren't played readily. Like of course, there are like you can go find like probably half a dozen cards which will say that this has no skills on play. But decks that actually run those cards or have them in the sideboard even are very few.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty rare that you'll see those, especially
exactly.
because you have to stop them. I guess activating the skill as well. Does that Nappa have deflect? Just out of curiosity.
No, it does not.
Oh,
So yeah, it literally gets hit by everything. But it's also a lot of the time, if I had the Vegeta SCR, I would use it more aggressive. I would use the Vegeta SCR more aggressively to kind of fake out that I've done my 1 burn damage,
yeah.
and then like send them into like a false sense of security and just drop this.
Yeah, nice.
And then they would just lose the
Yeah,
game.
it's pretty spicy. Did you ever run out of one drop targets for your Gogeta Unison?
A few times in like the longer games. So I know in the mirror match I did run out. But essentially, you don't really care past the first 3 or 4 turns. If your Unison's still alive and it has 8 markers and you're on like turn 5, you're not really like I would just rather swing double strike with it anyway. Like I don't really feel like I need to like flood the board. Because you're effectively just you're attempting to try and get a big board while keeping theirs empty the whole game anyway. So you would always just rather neg than no over. So the leader's effect becomes less prevalent in that sense as well.
Yeah, fair.
So as long as you see 2 of them, that's pretty much all you need, just 2 of them. Past that point, I didn't really care. I just like upticked. I was like, okay, cool. Unison's chilling.
Yeah, cool, perfect. And yeah, so you have sent me a second list of what you would play, uh, if you had all the cards. So
Yep.
I will quickly swap over that so everyone can see it, and let's, I guess, talk through it quickly. So first of all, as you mentioned, you would up it to 4 Gohans, um,
Yep.
because Gohan is a super good counterplay. Um,
Yep.
Definitely insane. The other one that we see gets added is you have the SS Broly Surging Attack. Now, do you want to talk about why this card is so silly?
Yeah, so definitely. It's a 3-drop red Broly, but it's actually activate main. If your opponent has 2 or more energy, you play it for 1 red. So it goes with literally every other card in this deck. You're pretty much the only card you're paying 2 for is the Omega Shenron, and I guess this for 4, but literally everything else is like 1 cost, which is the whole way I ran the deck is you just want to play as many things for as cheap. So it's a critical servant when this card is played. You can't play it for the turn, and then you can either KO opponent's battle cards with 15k power less, or give your leader Overlord. So essentially, you pay 1 red, get a 25k crit, which you swing with. You're either KOing one of their cards, or you're then just bottom decking it and drawing a card. So it either cycles itself or essentially KOs one of their cards, so it's effectively cycling one of their cards for you. So it even combines with things like, okay, cool, I'm just going to use leader ability minus something 15k, or minus like any Android 21 card 15k. I'm now going to pay one and just KO it. And now you have to do something about a 25k crit swing. It is just absurd. I don't know what Bandai were doing when they decided to give Red so many good one drops, which just do so many things. But I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation, and it does unfortunately have Servant, which means there is no way in this deck to, I guess, deal deal with that Servant effect if you go for the KO effect. But if we're playing something like SS4 Gogeta, you can always combo it off in rest mode, which is a
Exactly.
bit silly. But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about over this second list? I've noticed you moved the Pilaf missiles over to the side. But besides that, it looks like it's pretty much identical. Besides just getting those extra Gohans and these Brolys in.
Yeah, so I moved the PLF missiles to the side just to put the Brolys in the main, just because I found that the PLF missiles were actually kind of only good into yellow, but yellow is a very prominent deck, and so I treat best of one pre-side as pretty much just your sideboard is your main deck, so it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter where you put those cards anyway. Like in best of three, you got to think more about what you want for game one and have like a more balanced deck. But best of one pre-side, like any 15 cards could be anywhere. It's just I look at more the total of the cards and how many cards I think are extra that I can move around that I don't exactly need. So I was the Brawlies probably like if I don't want to side, if I'm not versing yellow, the Brawlies just probably feel better in more generic scenario. But pretty much other than that, the only thing I added into the side was the shoes, King's Pico Underling. So that was from Benny actually. I was thinking about this card, but I was like it hurts Golden Freezer a lot because if you counterplay the one drop they're trying to play, and you do it on the last one that they're trying to untap their energy with, you've just killed them. Like that, like if they tap out and can't untap, they just lose the game. But it actually also has really good benefits into things like some of the tokens, like the 5k tokens that it doesn't get played, it gets to the drop instead, which is also good. And the Ocean Gate. So the Ocean Gate doesn't get played, it doesn't get its milling effect.
yeah, definitely. It also, funnily enough, is really annoying if you play Trunks Vegeta. I played against Red Sin Shenron this weekend,
Yes.
and turn one, I went to go play my one drop Vegeta, and they went shoot, and I said, well, fuck. This sucks. And then it was like
Yes.
turn three. I went to like you swing with leader, and then here I said any counter plays. And he's like, yes, I will shoot. And I was like, okay, I can still choose to draw, but now I don't have a one drop trunk, so I can't play my three drop trunks, and it's gonna be a lot slower of a turn. So it's
Exactly, yeah.
definitely a super strong card against yellow. So it's a lovely card to see there in your side. Thanks a bunch for doing this with me, Kevin. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to give?
Uh, I'd just like to shout out Cartastic, the go-to locals. I know we had like I think six out of the top eight in the second last round were all from the locals, so it's great to see the boys
Yeah.
getting up there. I know it's definitely one of the hardest locals I've ever been to. I definitely don't win very often just because having to verse John and Benny every week
Yep.
gives you depression when you're not trying your absolute hardest. So yeah, shout out to Nick and John as well for being testing partners the day before, and yeah,
Yeah, it's
yourself
definitely
as well for let me do this deck list.
nah, 100% man. It's definitely probably the strongest locals in Australia. Maybe one of the Perth ones can rival you guys. But is the Hatch player one of your local guys as well?
He is,
Yeah,
yes,
so that
yeah.
was four of the top eight from the one locals, which is ridiculous. First, second, fourth, and sixth. So that's just it. Just shows how goes to show how strong you guys are. But thanks a bunch for doing this with me, Kevin. And I hope you guys have learnt a lot about Red Sin in this format. Uh,
Awesome. Thank you for that.
all good. Have a good one, guys. Bye.